Hello traders and investors, I'm LA Little and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets doing it from a neoclassical perspective. That means we look at the volumes, we look at the charts, we're looking for volume and demand on the charts, areas of significance that get tested that tell us something. That's neoclassical, that's what we do. Use that to know where we go next. I do a show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. It's broadcast at 4, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. It's archived on YouTube. It's under the channel LA Little. If you want to subscribe and haven't, just reach up in the right-hand corner and do so. Anytime content's pushed, you'll get a notification. As far as today, we ended up down, but last night I was talking about this market was going to try to push higher. We'll look at it intraday and I'll show you what it actually did because that's exactly what it did. They gapped it down, they ran it up, they closed the gaps, they got positive, and then they gave it all back up again. In down on the day, you got a lot of earnings going on. Bank of Japan comes out and doesn't do anything. Nikkei gets just totally demolished again. If you can't depreciate the yen, that market's not going higher. In fact, that market's going to try to go lower. Over on the other side of the world, on the European markets, we actually had those markets stay higher today. And that was prior to, of course, us tanking. We were heading up while they were closing. They'll probably give some of it back. The real standouts today, gold, silver, right? Big pushes in those commodities. Those commodities continue to push higher, and you actually had oil up again. Oil approaching $50 a barrel, which everybody's now starting to say is going to happen. So let's take a look at the charts and see what we got here. We'll start with the S&P 500. And as we pull up the chart, the first thing you're going to notice is some volume coming into this. Now, that swing point high here is 2075.07. Today you get into it and you close over it slightly, but you hit it with more volume, right? So you come into it with more volume. That says you're probably going to come back down there again. You're also sitting at this swing point low getting ready to break. These trends are getting extended, as I've told you about before. In this particular case, right, the S&P transitioned back here. That's a long way to go. It's about 70% on the MTTFs. That says it's extended. That says it wants to reset. Well, how does it reset? It has to break a swing point low. That's what it's getting ready to do. May do it tomorrow. May wait until next week, but it's getting close. So anyway, pops into the high, has the volume, right? It's probably going to come down there and try to do it again. What it did do today, if you look at the tail up here, is it went all the way back up and tried to push higher. Didn't quite get there, but tried. If we look at the NASDAQ, those are the ones that we were looking at last night. We were looking at them coming into this big bar. And so actually, let's go to the NDX because that was the one that was giving us the tail last night. If we look at the NDX, right, the NDX was coming into this top bar and it got to the bottom of it, right? That low here last night was 43.81. The low on the NDX big bar was 43.87. So it gets into it, closes over it. That says it wants to try to go higher. What does it do? Just as I said last night, it's going to try to push higher. Well, that's what it did. It got up over it, then gave it all up, right? Comes right back down the other way, volume expanding. It's already broken one swing point low. It's trying to break another. It looks like it actually did tonight. Let's see if it did. The low there is 43.74. And we close underneath it, right? So you've broken 2 swing point lows. You've transitioned to bearish now on this daily time frame. And so that's the way that was set up. Now, after hours, you got a bunch of earnings again, just like you had last night. Tonight, you got Amazon up big. You got LinkedIn. You got a few others. So they're going to try to push it up again tomorrow. And what are they doing? They're going to be pushing back into this big bar. Top of that bar is, let's get the number on it, 44.20. That's where you're going to have resistance tomorrow. Let's see how it behaves when it gets back up to there, if it makes it that far. Moving back to the NASDAQ. So the NASDAQ last night tested lower, right? Got down to 48.26. This big bar last night was 48.14. Well, tonight it actually gets in, it's 48.04. Tonight, it actually pushes down to 47.96, gets into it, doesn't have the volume, does break a swing point low, but is probably going to flip around and try to bounce back up again tomorrow. So we've got this continual press on the weakest indexes, which is the technology, yet we still don't want to really give it up, even here, but certainly not elsewhere. And so the S&P 500, as we saw, and the Russell, as we're looking at now, they're coming off. They're coming off with a little bit more volume now. The Russell has a break of a swing point high, more than 6 bars. So what that says is when it gets down here, it's probably going to get bought into this zone. Now that's still another 20, 30 points away, about 20, what is it, about 25 points away. But that is the setup when it gets back to this area. So yeah, we can come down some more. We're going to try to push back up on the NASDAQ tomorrow, given the way that was set up. Although if we look at the S&P 500, that one says we're going to try to come down and do it again. So as you know, the big news last night was probably in the currency markets again. I talked about it last night. It was going to be the big news. That happened to be the FXY, the yen. Bank of Japan didn't do anything. This just skyrocketed back higher. If you pull over the monthly chart, you know, as I told you last night, this thing's going to this swing point low. So that's 92.75, about another 3% from where it is. I don't see anything to stop it until it gets there. If we look over the euro, euro is actually trying to grind higher. It's right back up here at the top. And finally, if we swing over and look at the dollar, with those currencies moving up, dollars moving down, it's up underneath another swing point low here on the daily. On the weekly, we've been talking about this for a while. It's coming after this big swing point low. I suspect it's going to spike it and then go back the other way. So that's the dollar, that's the currencies. Now, that, of course, is moving as the dollar goes down. That's moving the commodities. Silver breaks out today, skyrockets back up, gets over the swing point high, well, it gets over the highs, and on the on the weekly chart, it's coming after the swing point high. If you look at it on the monthly, you've broken over a swing point high. Looks like it's going to close there, and so you're actually going to end up with breakouts across multiple time frames on silver, all 3 time frames, matter of fact, when you incorporate the monthly time frame. Gold's pushing out that big range. Now, I've talked about gold for a long time. I've talked about this range that was set up. We had talked about, you know, if you go back to some of the older videos, you know, when we made this big spike up, you know, I had said that this spike is going to define the range for some period of time. Well, tonight, you're back above it, right? The range did get expanded, got expanded down to here, and we got over it a couple times, but we're only able to hold over it one time, and now we're over it again. Let's see if it breaks out. It's over a swing point high here. Let's see if it actually got over this one as well. 121.18 closes at 29, so it gets over 2 of them. There's only one left. If we move it over, look at the monthly chart, the weekly chart. You got a swing point high here. It's going after. That's at 122.37. If tomorrow gold spikes again, you're going to get breakouts on multiple time frames. And if you've watched me for any period of time, you know what that means. That means this thing's going to probably go for another 2 to 3 bars on the longest time frame. Of course, GDX is going with it. Got a nice big push today, new highs, continues up. You know, you got huge ABCD structures here. A lot of people think they've missed the rally. Well, that's if you want to think you missed a rally, because you can always get into these things. You just have to have the patience and the fortitude to find your entry. And I'm looking for an ABCD structure here, and I don't even see one, folks. That's how strong this has been. You've got this congestion area right in here, but there's no lower high, lower low to define a B point. Now, some folks would just, you know, draw it in there and say, okay, that's the B point. Well, that's not really the B point, but that's whatever it is. The key here is that this market is strong. You got a little consolidation. You came from a low level. You're going to a higher level. It's the way it's setting up. As far as overseas, or actually not overseas, but the sectors, if we take a look at the sectors here, you actually had some weakness in these sectors tonight. And so underneath the covers, things are getting a little bit more interesting. For example, if you look at the SOX is basing now, has been with this range. You know, it broke out back here. That range has been in about this area. You can actually define a little tighter range inside of it. but it's in this range, right? You got swing point lows here and here, farther down. This thing's trying to come down. Volume's expanding on the down days lately. It's trying to come down and break that range. If you look at it on the weekly, it's trying to roll over. Of course, there are no swing point lows down here to break. The key is the big bar as you come back into it. 89.15 is the number, not quite there, trying to get there. If you look at the XLB does an over-under, has a little less volume. That's going to try and pull back into this big bar. That's the breakout bar. You can see the green arrow. You got breakouts all across, because if you look at this on the weekly, there's been all sorts of congestion and swing points from prior times, high here, high there, and so forth. As it goes up, what is it doing is testing into the breakdown bar over here. That's the wide price spread bar. That's a bar of significance. That's why you're looking at it, 47.67. You got up to 47.91. So you get over it. You're back underneath it as we speak. This is on the weekly. If you close down here, as a matter of fact, if you close back into this bar and you don't get much volume tomorrow, that's going to be an over-under, even though it has an ABCD structure to the top side. And when I was talking about the ABCD structure, look at this area here. That's what defines it. And over a lower high, lower low after an extended run. Not so much after extended run, but a lower high, lower low on a pullback right after a push. That gives you a B point here, gives you a C point there, ABCD structure to take it back to the highs. May not get there though. If you look at the energy sector, right, the energy sector also does an over-under, right? And that's actually a 2-bar given the, well, let's see if it looks like a 2-bar. The way I measure a 2-bar or try to decide if it's a 2-bar is I just look at the angle of ascent and say, what does it look like, right? That's not too bad, right? 45 degrees, something like that. So that's not too bad. I probably wouldn't call it a 2-bar. It's an over-under, though. Probably wants to pull back. And then you look elsewhere. You actually had some financials coming off with some volume today. And if I pull over to XLI comes off with big volume, right? Didn't hit the highs from yesterday. Gets underneath yesterday's bar. It's coming back into the swing point high. Going to test it, looks like to me. No volume on that guy. Let's see what it does when it gets to the lows. That's, what is it, about 55.60. You can go down the list. There's some others that are a little bit stronger, but you do see some weakness coming into the sectors. You see the mixed results up there on the indexes. What you don't see is you don't see any real desire to leave this market at this point, because where the money goes is it just rotates back into something else like the XLP or maybe the XLU. And so the money just simply doesn't want to leave, hasn't wanted to for months, or a couple months I should say. And right now, even though the market's under pressure, it's still hanging. As far as tomorrow, it's Friday. Look for that gold and silver to try to continue higher. Look for that dollar to spike that low. Look for these markets to be mixed, with your NASDAQ probably outperforming. That's it for tonight. Have a great one. Tell a friend, tell two. I'm LA. This is and was your daily NeoTA wrap. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. And I'll catch you Sunday night when we do a Sunday night broadcast looking at a little wider perspective. Good night, folks.